Hi, today I'm going to talk about Britain's educational system and its part in social disparity. However, I'm starting with a brief description of UK society and then the explanation of the country's school system. The United Kingdom's history and society are heavily marked by their monarchy. The royal families set standards of behavior and lifestyle that most British want to achieve. Britain's social pyramid represents the Queen and her family at the top, with the aristocracy right after. The biggest slice of the scheme is the middle class. Not only in Britain, but around the world, moving up the social pyramid has become easier in the last decades through education and work. People belonging to the middle classes who achieved a higher level of life are called bureaucrats. But how do most British feel about the royal family? Well, this is a quote that says taxpayers support the royals through the sovereign grant, which amounted up to $104 million in 2019. A YouGov poll in 2018 found that 7 in 10 Britons consider themselves monarchists and support the continuation of the royal family, while 21% oppose to it. Although the royal family costs taxpayers, it also provides economic benefits. According to Fast Company, the royal wedding, for example, in 2011, generated an estimated $2.7 billion for the UK economy, which saw a 3% increase in tourism that year. End quote. However, in recent surveys, the younger generation is not so fond of the monarchy, and 41% of the young adults questioned admitted to wanting to elect a head of state. The royals try to be a reflection of a perfect utopian British family. British high society tried to replicate their detached way of raising their children. The norm is for children to have a nanny and go to boarding schools. A parent taking away time from their social duties and events to take care of their kids is not seen as a royal thing to do. The middle to higher classes try to replicate this behavior due to believe that if the royal family is educated like that, their kids should try to achieve the same education status. British society is deeply status-driven and gives much importance to the social pyramid. In more recent years, there has been a conversation about trying to establish a classless society. However, this is not something that will be happening any soon, or it might even be intangible. When it comes to the UK's school system, education in the country is divided in 4 compartments called key stages. Stage 1 is from 5 to 7 years old, and stage 2 is from 7 to 11 years old. Stage 3 and 4 are from 11 years old to 16 years old. In years 7 and 8, it is mandatory for children to study math, English, sciences, humanity, and a modern language. After the required subjects, each school has optional ones like arts, music, or drama. It is in the year 9 that the students transition to a senior school. In years 10 and 11, students prepare for the General Certificate of Secondary Education, the GCSE exams. Students take from 9 to 11 subjects. Every subject is evaluated by exam, but the chosen ones are important for further studies and for university applications. After age 16, education is no longer mandatory. However, the school system offers a 2-year program where the students specialize in 3 to 4 subjects that are relevant to the courses they want to take in university. And at the end of the year 13, each subject is subjected to an exam and students receive a A-level certificate. Due to financial power, the majority of British parents send their children to state schools, which are free of charge and financed by the government. However, there is a pressure to privately educate children. Many children from the middle to high classes leave home for the first time at 8 years old to a boarding school, trying to mimic the lifestyle of the aristocracy. When it comes to higher education, the universities, UK's advanced education is esteemed everywhere and on the world for its renowned standards and quality. But why are British universities so praised? Well, when you get a British degree, your education will be recognized wherever you go for its prestige. These merits will be rewarded in the professional world. There are numerous offers of courses and the option to tailor them to tailor the courses you are taking to study a program that suits anyone is also a huge benefit. Due to the high standards in UK's universities, British graduates are already considered qualified and effective and skilled employees. So a degree from Britain is an open door for a successful career in any field. All these arguments attract thousands of international students to the UK every year, even though students outside from the European Union have to pay significantly higher tuitions. Four British universities occupy the top 6 places in the international ranking. The Labour Party ended state funding to students in higher education and focused on the loan system that students start to pay after joining the labour market. In 2019, the Student Loans Company lent nearly £9.5 billion. When it comes to social disparity, which is the main focus of this presentation, the school system in Britain is firmly divided into public and free education and a private and expensive one. The public system is state-funded and more standardized, while the private schooling requires the students to pay fees. While attending to a private institution, children receive better opportunities for success in examination and access to higher education. Considering that, the existence of such a differentiation between the public school system and the private education only reinforces the stratification of British society and is a decisive factor in inequality. The independent school system skills the children of a certain behavior, manners, and way of talking that tries to come close to the ones of the royal family. The emphasizing of the shaping of the personality prepare young boys to become the ruling elite of the nation and enroll in politics. They are also a getaway for social climbing, as one can move upwards in their social status if given private schooling. Working classes and lower to middle class children represent only 11% of the private sector students. But what advantage does private schooling gives? First of all, class sizes are smaller. While in public state-funded schools, classes have from 21 to 25 students, the average size of independent schools classes in the UK is 18. Some private schools even go as small as 6. Since private schools do not have to follow the national curriculum, students have the option to tailor it to their needs and interests. This personification of the educational system provides the pupils, improves the pupils' efforts in classes, their taste for education, and of course, their grades. The institution's facilities also play a huge role. Private schools are where students get resources like infrastructures for sports, art creation, and places to study and practice their activities effectively. Quote, more than 40% of UK's athletes who won medals in the London 2012 Olympics had attended independent schools. This is most likely due to their easy access to training facilities and coaches. Social disparity due to education in the UK only starts here. Only about 6% of the UK school population attend private schools. Fees to get this kind of education are not something that most British can afford. Old boarding schools like Eton, for example, have basic fees around £40,000. Most important figures in the country attended independent schools. Quote, despite the fact that around only 7% of British children are privately educated, 34% of MPs went to fee-paying schools, and the figure for Tory members of parliament is 54. The Labour figure, to put that in perspective, is a mere 12%. People who have had expensive educations dominate journalism, law, finance. It is remarkable how many positions of wealth, influence, celebrity, and power in our society are held by individuals who were privately educated, said the Education Secretary Michael Gove in May last year. The numbers tell us of a society where both educational privilege housed by lifetime privilege and influence, end quote. Due to its resources, discipline, environment, personification of the curricula, and overall a motivating atmosphere to achieve higher, private schooling means high-quality education. Going to private schools plays a huge role when it comes to applying for a university. They have the ability to prepare their pupils very well for the public exams. Quote, a study of university entrance in 2013 found that 60% of independently educated students went to university in comparison to 48% in the state sector, end quote. But why is it so important for us to question that the most important people in Britain have had access to high quality education? Is that not a beneficial thing for the country that important people have good education? Well, if you think about it in this one-sided perspective, yes, it is good that people with power have good education. However, this is not the core question in the problem. The problem is the systemic nature of these two parallel educational systems. The access to private schools is in reach of wealthy children who come from wealthy and influential families. A monopoly of this way of living, basically a monopoly of the private school system, where few to no place is left for lower classes, will continue. It has become somewhat politically correct to talk about a reform of the educational system, having important figures state as things as Britain has the lowest social mobility in a developed world, said David Cameron in 2015, while Theresa May said, I want Britain to be a place where advantage is based on merit, not privilege, where it's your talent and hard work that matter, not where you were born, who your parents are, or what your accent sounds like. However, this is not has materialized into any kind of legislation or change. High-quality education being accessible to only a small portion of the population perpetuates social segregation and inequality. Now, more than any time before, when education is more important for a professional career and to social mobility. In 2009, in the UK alone, people aged 25 to 59, people who were graduated and employed, had hourly earnings about 80% higher than the same age group with level 2 national vocational qualification. Quote, even soon after graduation, the pay gap between private and state school educated peers is evident. Within 6 months, the average difference is 1,300 per annum, end quote. The children's backgrounds and home lives affect their performances at school as well. Countries where the parent generation has more education, have higher incomes, and overall provide their children a good environment to study and get good grades aren't as unequal. The peer effect is also a factor which, in a nutshell, describes the proven phenomenon that children who study together learn from each other as well. Considering that state schools in Britain are frequented by kids in that general territorial area, the endless cycle of social stagnation continues. Areas less educated and perhaps poorer will bring out less educated children who will turn out adults with low income, less opportunities, and lower quality of life. Considering that the higher classes can afford to choose where to put their children to study, including sending them to boarding schools, they will be surrounded with people with similar backgrounds as them and basically start being in a symbiotic relation with them. Not improving the education and opportunities of less advantaged students is setting them up for failure. An article published in the BBC News states that with this rate of improvement, poorer pupils will take up to at least 50 years to catch up to the level of other children are. A country with such differences between two educational systems is not an uniform and socially cohesive state. It is a stratified society where the lack of social mobility reflects few opportunities available for the population in the lower section of the social pyramid. Comparing the zones where the poorer people are distributed throughout England with the most prosperous postcodes in the country, they end up being exact opposites. This is just another proof that less advantaged children who are forced into state education will be stuck in social stagnation and will become low income as an adult. In conclusion, the two parallel educational systems in Britain are forming a big inequality gap between the ones who can afford private schooling and the ones who cannot. Britain's education, even though with high merit worldwide, is not accessible to the majority of its population. A reform is urgent, creating opportunities to younger generations and therefore help social mobility to the general public are essential steps for a more homogeneous and cohesive country. The British desire to mimic the aristocracy has only prevailed this issue. The existence of a royal family in itself and their huge influence in Britain's society already sets a tone to a stratified society. A more well-educated country with equality and with possibility of a good quality of life for the whole population are the main standards for an evolved and progressed state. With this, I finished my presentation. Thank you.